Hi, everybody. Today we are discussing documentary. Favorite documentary of all time, or at least a couple for you, Jacob. A couple for me. Let's talk about one of your favorites. Talk about it.
Muscle Shoals. Muscle Shoals was actually it was put out in 2013, and it follows a gentleman by the name of Rick Hill and how he created this sound in northern Alabama, in a little town called Shoals, and the actual place where the music happens is called the Fame Theater.
Is it so the Fame Sound? It's almost like a sound studio, right?
It's a Fame Sounds. I think it's called Fame Sound Studio.
Fame Sound Studio in Muscle Shoals, Alabama.
Northern Alabama, right?
Okay.
The Tennessee River runs right through it, right? It's so funny because we talked about a documentary recently regarding the Barkley marathons. It's just probably maybe a couple hundred miles away from each other, not too far, same type of people and so forth. But this is a documentary that I saw a few years ago, Ruben. Just recently, just to let you know, it reminded me of another documentary I just saw by Mary McCartney called Abbey Road, which is a good one. I believe she was really inspired by this one, Muscle Shoals, because you get the feel of northern Alabama, right? You feel the people, the culture, the music. And Rick Hill is this legendary record producer and engineer, and he brings people like Etta James and Aretha Franklin, Paul Simon, Bono, down there to.
You mean Bono?
They say Bono? Bono, to northern Alabama to record their music. And what's special about it is that they have these great these studio musicians. They call them swampers, right? And these guys play a lot of legendary albums from Paul Simon to Aretha, like I mentioned, these great artists. And they're all white, and most people thought they were African American because they sound so great and they have that soul. And even once Paul Simon said, "You know what? I want those great black musicians that played on Aretha's album to play on mine." They're like, "No, they're white." He's like, "What? So great."
So this is documentary about this studio that seemed to draw in a lot of different great musicians. And so when people watch this, what's the pull? What's the intrigue? What are they going to learn? What's going on?
I think a couple of things. One is because I was thinking, because I couldn't help compare myself again to Abbey Road. I mean, compare this one to Abbey Road that just came out.
The famed Abbey Road, the
Beatles studio
in which the Beatles recorded some great albums. Okay.
Yeah. And so what it is that I think you will see in the documentary that a lot of musicians will talk about it's the feel of the place, the music, the river, the aura. And I'm like, is that really it? And I kept asking myself that. I go, there has to be something more to it. Why are these wonderful albums happening? And as I'm watching this documentary happen, I go, oh no, it's Rich, right? The guy who put it together, who put the studio together, these musicians. It's him, his backstory, his life, his dedication to the musicians and the sound. You hear his life story throughout. You hear pieces of it throughout the whole documentary, and it's a fascinating story from a wife who died in a car accident with him, not with him, but she died in a car accident while he was driving, and a little brother that burned, not burned to death, but was hurt in a boiling accident of hot water. And so you hear these tragedies, and you see him really, because of those tragedies, get to a place where he is ready to be dedicated to something like music and work with these great artists, and never he never backs down to perfection. He wants it to be perfect, and everyone knows that. They go, you know what? If we go there to Muscle Shoals, we're going to put a great album out. And so all these great artists from even the Rolling Stones, Keith Richards is interviewed, and they're talking to him about why it's so special. And he'll say things like, "Oh, it's the aura, it's the river, it's a community." But then you hear towards the end, people start saying, "Oh no, it's Rich. It's because of this great producer that." Muscle Shoals is what it is, and it's just great. And you hear the music movement throughout the different pieces of music, so it's just wonderful. And you go, wow, why haven't I ever heard of this before? Why haven't I ever heard of this location? I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it before.
I haven't seen this documentary, but as you're talking, it reminds me of another documentary. I'm forgetting the title at the moment, but It's in the Valley or North Hollywood
Oh
somewhere,
yeah.
where they recorded a lot of the legendary Mamas and the Papas,
Yeah.
Beach Boys, a lot of the greats. I'm sure you've seen it.
I have.
I just don't remember the title right now, but I like those too because you get a sense of history of the musical history.
Right.
Sounds like it's a similar type of
It is.
documentary.
You see it's late 60s. You're dealing with a lot of civil rights issues because you have this white musicians, and then eventually black musicians are playing with them. And Rich says, you know what? When you guys come into this studio, yeah, there's no racism. There's nothing, and you tell these people just love each other and they work with each other. And it's all about the music. And during the late 60s and of course in the 70s, you had the Allman Brothers come in, and the great Leonard Skinner. And even I mentioned the Swampers, right, in their song what's called Alabama, Sweet Home Alabama.
Leonard Skinner.
Sweet Home Alabama. They mentioned those backup singers, right, in his song, in their song, which I should say. So anyway, that being said, it's just a documentary, Ruben, that no one should really miss. It's one of my favorites, top 5 for sure. Yeah.
So the Muscle Shoals documentary. Don't forget to also tell us what is your favorite documentary. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.